All right, so we'll probably see a couple other people trickle in here, but why don't we just go ahead and get started? So if you haven't joined us before, welcome to the Nerdy Birdy. In this webinar series, we're showing you start to finish examples of successful integrations with our synthesized vendors and channel partners. And so we're going to feature guest speakers on the vendor side, and they're sharing their integration experience with us and what it's like to work with Synthesize, our billing and alerts module. So we really want to highlight what went well, what went less well. Again, we're trying to be as open, transparent, and honest as we can. And again, this is really derived from it being success focused. This is really not meant to be a sales focused webinar. We want to hear from you. We want to get down into the nitty gritty, the nerdy birdie. So if you do have any questions, feel free to jump into the chat or go into the Q&A section there. We'd love to speak with you, engage with you. And yeah, we have this next hour to dive into things. Nerdy Birdie happens every Tuesday. So come next month, this will happen on the third Tuesday there. So keep on the lookout for that. But let's go ahead and just highlight what we're going to go through today. So quickly, just introductions. How do Rewst and Gradient help MSPs? That's a no-brainer. But we're going to dive into like some sources of truth, because again, this is really where we're going to leverage Rewst's workflows and their current integrations and seamlessly integrate with their workflows into Synthesize to automate billing reconciliation. So we want to identify some sources of truth that you as an MSP should consider or need to consider when reconciling your services and cost of goods sold. And then we're going to take a deep dive into Synthesize-connected workflows with Rewst. We're going to follow that up by Q&A and just dive into Leg Up and our virtual conference that is coming up on June 1st. If you haven't already registered, register now, because I think you're actually eligible to win one of two early bird prizes just for registering, for crying out loud. We have a lot of guest speakers there, but I'll dive into that at the very tail end of this webinar here. Lots of exciting stuff happening at Leg Up, lots of cool announcements. And in fact, Rewst is one of our boss sponsors. So how cool is that? No affiliation to Nerdy Birdie at all. We didn't know this until afterwards. So just know that. Now, first and foremost, myself, Bryan Chapman, Manager of Partner Success here at Gradient MSP. I'm honestly just super dedicated and committed to supporting you as an MSP and realizing the full potential of Synthesize platform. Now, I have been gifted some years of experience working at an MSP for 6+ years. I actually coined myself as a recovering MSP because I often get flashbacks working with MSPs like yourself each and every day, especially when it comes to billing reconciliation. I often would close my door for a week straight and just no interruptions allowed, so I could just get through billing and invoice cycle. And I just despised my life at the time. So again, I am very passionate when it comes down to it and trying to automate those workflows, those back-end processes that often go unnoticed. And it's one of those thankless jobs. And even if you are a CEO or CEO that does it, it's probably the one thing that you just don't want to do. So again, let's try to automate that all together. Yeah, I look forward to working with you, if not working with you to automate even more so. So without further ado, now let's talk about the Nerdy Birdie himself, Tim Fournet. He's the Cratemaster at Rewst. So why don't you, Tim, explain a little bit about yourself, where you came from, how long you've been with Rewst, and can you just define what a Cratemaster is? Because there's probably a few questions out there, like what is a Cratemaster?
Yeah. So yeah, my name's Tim Fournet. I've also been at the MSP space for quite a while, coming up on 18 years now. So I was at an MSP for 16 or 17 of those. wearing pretty much every hat from sales and marketing and technical, built data centers, built phone systems, done a little bit of everything, always tried to automate along the way. And so when Rewst came along, uh, I decided that this is what I want my life to be. I want to focus on the automation and do so for all of the MSPs, not just the one that I'm at. And a little bit about Rewst. We are a automation platform. So industry calls this an RPA, stands for Robotics Process Automation. Just a fancy word for saying that we take processes, especially things where we can integrate with different applications using their APIs, and connect them all together to make them do things that on their own they couldn't do.
Mhm.
I've been at Rewst now for a little over a year, almost a year and a half, having a good time here. And as far as Cratemaster, we try to have a fun culture here at Rewst. And a lot of what I do is taking the automations that our team builds. So automations being, workflows and forms and templates and scripts, all the things that it takes to get some process to be packaged up and put those together into our crate marketplace. So we call our packaged automations crates, kind of keeping with the bird egg theme. Um,
Yeah,
and so when you install a crate, you install the automations that we build.
that's very cool. And that's that no extra charge, right? That's just available to all Roost
Yeah,
partners.
that comes in the platform. Whenever we are able to take someone's automation and make it usable for the world, then it's a crate.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, and if you haven't checked out Roost, Roost is an incredible platform, incredible potential there as far as what you can do. They have quite a few integrations already. And so let's just dive into just how do Roost and Gradient help MSPs? Because, some might think that there's a little bit of overlap with Roost and Gradient, but in fact, there's really maybe not as much overlap as you think, because what we're doing is more so building reconciliation and alerts integrations with currently 9 PSAs on the market to accelerate invoice cycles and ensure that you get accurate financial records on one sense, and reduce the administrative burden and strengthen client relationships. Because again, when that client sees that invoice, you want to make sure that it's accurate, it's void of any errors. And so this is really where our focus and attention right now is on the billing side of things. Lots happening from now until leg up. Leg up is just 2 weeks away. We got a big announcement coming there. Lots of cool things. Again, register. Now, Roost. This is really where I think of Roost as kind of like a RPA. Is that not right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's basically the way we're building our platform. Yeah.
Yeah. So robotics process automation, that's really what it comes down to. And then that, like, there's one thing that we both have is this user-friendly GUI, this user interface. And Roost has blown this out of the water because from the time that I've been playing with it, it's actually so user-friendly. So you don't even have to be technically inclined to be able to create workflows and forms and so on and so forth. It makes things stupid simple, and just to be able to grab things from the Crate marketplace too and finesse and customize those to your own needs is absolutely fantastic. So really simplifying the complex tasks faced by MSPs, and really allowing them to focus on strategic growth and customer satisfaction and service delivery. Because when I was working at MSP, like Tim, like same thing, many hats, from operations to sales to marketing to even consulting on the side. And it's just, there's a lot happening at an MSP. And for you to automate your backend processes or automate things that typically just consume time is your single biggest you know,
Constraint. Yeah.
constraint out there, right? So it's one of those things where it's like the shoemaker's shoe. I always go back to that
Yeah.
with MSPs, that they're so focused on just outwards supporting their client that they don't focus internally to automate and streamline their own processes when it comes to billing, alerts, to uh forms, and automating onboarding and offboardings. And it's and then if you don't spend that time now, think of it 6 months from now when you have 10 plus more clients, and then you're scaling and you're growing, and then this gets just exemplified to all of a sudden that it's just not even you can't even handle yourself, and things are getting out of the line, and all of a sudden your customer satisfaction drops and your service delivery is imploding. So it's really in your best interest as an MSP to focus intrinsically on yourself, and make sure that you're automating as much as you can so you can scale as fast as you can and really maintain that quality of service. Any more on that there, Tim? Like,
Yeah, I mean, you pretty much hit it. I mean, what we do is give you a place to take those processes that you know you need to automate, and give you somewhere to get started. So you
mhm,
can use some of the automations that we've pre-built, either to start from or use the way they're built. But yeah,
yeah.
it's important to take those practices that you have and make them able to run without you being the one to click every button every time.
Yeah. And one thing that I like even just thought of it now is just that technical debt. How often at MSP do you have someone that's, building flows or workflows, integrations, if you will, reporting, etc. They just leave, or
Yeah.
you know they just fall off the face of a cliff, and then you're left with this technical debt and you don't know what to do with
Yeah.
it or maintain it or support it. And it erodes your service delivery and your back end operations too, because all of a sudden that person's gone, and then you have not. And this is where, like, I feel like Rewst, Gradient, this is really where we're trying to build this central ecosystem, so you're not using 10 plus 20 plus tools to do the same thing. You're not going out and fetching alerts from like Microsoft Power Platform to email parsing through another tool and all these other things. It's like, it's this technical debt that is like, although it's great to automate, why not bring that all in to a central location so you can manage and support these things effectively?
Oh yeah.
And so that's one thing on top of that that I just failed to mention on the slide here, but that's huge. Um, so
Yeah, that's been one of the risks of automation that people are, kind of keep people away from it, is, that fear that if they have their rock star developer build their automations and be in charge of that and keep all those on his own computer, and whenever they need to run something, he's running PowerShell and just making it happen, which is great. But then what happens when that person leaves? So that's one of the challenges that we've tried to address, and making it so that when you build something, anyone can maintain it. The workflow itself is the documentation of how it works, and you're
yeah,
able to improve it over time, store it in one place, keep it somewhere where it's central to your company, not central to one person's own little castle.
yeah, so true. So next up, I just really, before Tim takes the screen here and takes a deep delve into these workflows, I really wanted just to highlight the top four sources of truth that all MSPs must consider when reconciling customer contracts. And I think this is really important, and albeit it might be pretty obvious, obviously with your vendor partner portal. Obviously, this is one straightforward, often the default option, going directly to your vendor portals to pull endpoints, agents, services, M365, etc. But quite often it can be time consuming because let's face it, either there's no integration with PSA, or you're having, or they don't even support that of like an export for you to then import that usage and parse through all that information. This is where really where, thanks to Rewst, they might even have a connector or an integration which you can integrate and then automatically sync that usage into Synthesize, or you just create a custom integration, much in tune with what Rewst is doing right now with workflows, uh, tailor that just to your specific needs. So obviously that vendor partner portal, pretty straightforward. It's a one-to-one mapping of like agents and whatnot. But again, your PSA, let's just consider this. And so when it comes to billing reconciliation of your services, often the fact PSAs, it holds a plethora of data, but it's limited to certain features or functionalities to retrieve contacts or configuration items, locations, contracts, agreements, service tickets, etc. So there's so much data in there, and you go often to a PSA to automate. It's a professional service automation, but they might lack in automation to reconcile those things. So why not use your PSA to reconcile your services? When it comes to custom integrations or Rewst, why not leverage that information that's readily available at your fingertips to reconcile or create alerts on? So, this is just another challenge for you. Take a look at what your sources of truth are for your services, how you're reconciling them. And I want to go beyond that too. Let's talk about cost of goods sold. If you're not already itemizing your add-on services that make up your managed service bundles or packages, let's talk about breaking those out for cost of goods sold and to map those to GL accounts to your accounting package so you have greater financial reporting, profitability, and reports and whatnot. Like that's another challenge for you. So take a hard look at just how you're pulling in this data to reconcile not only your revenue generating line items, but your cost of goods sold as well. So that's another challenge. Your PSA has a lot of information. Just to, ruffle your feathers, so to speak, is, I've created a custom integration just recently. MSPs wanted to pull in the number of configurations within their PSA by configuration type. So there's things even like that we can pull from your PSA, or contacts, or contacts with user-defined field or custom fields that include, VIP or standard. Again, really depends on how you go about reconciling your services, bundles, packages, etc. But there's just so much information out there, and we can automate that. Your RMM, this is a no-brainer. Obviously, your RMM has is a great source of truth, notably for like your per device services, your workstations, servers, etc., your agents. Sometimes even your RMM has API endpoints to retrieve the software applications that are installed across all of your managed systems. So there's even potential there to reconcile above and beyond just your device and agent counts. Go one step further and start automating the applications or agents installed on those systems. So again, your RMM is a great source of truth. Rewst has integrations with many of the RMMs out there. Another MSP centric tool. Think of things like BrightGauge, BI tools, Lifecycle Insights, Cloud Radio. These are like customer portals in which they do, again, have so much data, and you're pulling it from various sources that it in itself becomes your source of truth. So again, this is just outline some considerations here, because Roost has many of these vendor and platform integrations. So you as a Roost partner can leverage those, copy that Crate marketplace workflow that's Tim's created and he will delve into here, and modify that to fit your specific needs, pulling from your RMM, your PSA, your vendor partner portals, etc. There's nothing stopping you from pulling all of this information and automating this all together. So this is really where I wanted to highlight this, because yeah, and if you could, Tim, just when you go to share your screen, just run through some of the integrations that you have, and
Yeah.
let's maybe identify some sources of truth that we could then extract from them, because there's no question that you as an MSP have what, on average 15 plus vendors that you work with, times that by the number of services, times that by the number of customers and contracts that you resell. Like, it's overwhelming when it comes to billing, and it can easily get out of hand, especially when you go to scale your business and grow. You need to focus on back-end operations and streamline that and be as efficient as possible, void of any errors. And this is really where Roost, Gradient really come together to make your life easier. So now, before we even skip on to the next screen here, Tim, is there anything else that you maybe want to throw in there, another source of truth that maybe I didn't cover?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many, as I think you covered them all. One of the challenges that we see a lot from people are making sure that those sources of truth are truthy enough to trust, right? So pulling from your
Yes.
RMM, like, are your devices accurate? You know, do you have some offline server that was retired 6 months
Mhm.
ago that never got pulled out? So again, those are, cases where automation can help you to figure out if, this server is offline because it's really gone, is retired, or did the agent crash and nobody noticed it? So
Yeah,
keep those
that's a
things
good
in
point.
mind.
We were in an central shop back in the day, and I remember just having to do the cleansing of agents and having to
Yeah.
go through, and it was just such a manual and arduous task, having to like identify, go client by client, device by device, and be like, okay, well, is this active? What's going on with this particular device? Is this off boarded? What's happened? Why is this offline? So many
Yep.
ifs, ands, or buts, and it's like, it's actually just super inefficient. Especially, no technician wants to do that. They just want to go about their job and not have to audit agents installed on devices. So if we can automate that, let's do it. And I think this is really where Roost
Yep.
stands to the forefront, because we can do all of that and then suck in that information to synthesize, and then instantly right back to your PSA to automate your billing. So without further ado, I'm going to pass this over to you, Tim. So
Sure.
we're going to just take a deep dive into the Synthesize-connected workflow that you created within Roost. And
Sounds
so
good.
I'm gonna stop sharing my screen, and hopefully you can share yours.
Let's give it a try. So window capture. All right, I should be sharing a workflow screen. Is that what's showing up?
Yeah,
Great.
it's great.
So this is the Roost workflow builder. Um, Typically, when you get into the platform, you would start off in our dashboard, but the workflow builder is really kind of the fun place. This is where all the magic happens. If you look on the left side of the screen, these are some of the applications that we have integrations with. So as you can see, that's mostly things that you only find in the MSP space. So your PSAs, your RMMs, a lot of the security tools that we have in the space. Obviously, we've got Microsoft integrations, some security tools, spam filters, things like that. But in this case, we had a client who is using Gradient. They wanted to be able to pull SureWeb subscriptions, mainly for Microsoft 365, but we're actually able to pull anything that is a SureWeb subscription. So the way this thing works is we kind of run some things in parallel. So we're getting our gradient information. So we had the client set up a custom integration in Gradient. And I'm sure Bryan can talk more about how that works because he's smarter at that than I am. But he helped me to get the integration set up, and we set up a specific one for working with SureWeb. And what we do is we, get all of our SureWeb customers. We get all of the subscriptions for each of the customers. And then we run a little bit of, our RPA environment is what we call low code, no code, which means that you will write a little bit of code. So we'll, right here, we're just collecting our results and we are converting that into an object by customer so that we can, compare that against what we have in Gradient. So at the same time, we are pulling Gradient information. So we're grabbing those synthesize contacts and subscriptions. And we're going to just match those things up.
And these are all HTTPS like requests, like REST API requests, like that get, and you can do post, get, whatnot. Yep. Like, yeah.
So we actually don't have an official integration with Gradient, but working with you guys was not an issue because we're able to make generic HTTP requests. We're able to, once we gathered the tokens to authenticate, I can even show you how this works. So these little purple boxes, that it means they're sub workflows. So we created basically a meta workflow that would work in place of an integration that would allow us to, we authenticate with our bearer tokens, we make our API request, we do some error handling just in case you forget to set the tokens. That way we log where we went wrong or where you went wrong. And we make our request too. So we can, support get, patch, put, post, all of the different types of requests. And we do that just to collect information from Gradient, synthesize, and then back to it. So we check to see if we have an account set up in this integration for each of the SureWeb customers that we have. If not, we create them. And we do the same thing with by creating products in Gradient to map with what we see in SureWeb. So grab all this information, we update our subscription counts, and then we just make sure that we set our integration to be active at the end of it. And from there, I guess the user, so you guys would do your client mapping and do your configuration to map the right agreements, products, and subscription counts to the right clients. Did I say that right, Bryan?
No, you said that right. So yeah, essentially, when you go to sign into Synthesize, you're going to go to the integrations page there. You're going to click the custom button, and this is where you can choose to build billing or an alerts integration, custom integration. So effectively, think of these custom integrations as like a self-hosted integration. This is in absence of us not actually supporting a direct integration with your said vendors or distros, i.e. SureWeb in this case. So this is really where, as long as your vendor or distro has that of like an open API, we should, Rewst and Gradient, should have no problem creating a custom integration, leveraging potentially even workflows and their current connectors and integrations. But yeah, essentially what we're going to go through is the process of creating accounts from your vendor or distro into Synthesize. We're then going to create services from your vendor to Synthesize, and those are essentially unique subscriptions, just subscriptions, so that way we don't have any duplicates. And we can modify this as in whatever way you want. So like, take for instance, like SureWeb, and Obviously, it's a distro. Much of what you sell through that is Microsoft NCE. And we all know the pains that come with NCE.
Yeah.
And one of the pains is commitment and billing terms. Maybe SureWeb doesn't have the ability to export that information appropriately to then import into Synthesize, whatever. This is where we can modify this however we want. So as long as like they have that endpoint available, those objects or fields available for you to append to your product name, we can do that. So that way we can append your billing and commitment term to your product name, build those as services within Synthesize. So that way, when you go to map those services in Synthesize to your PSA, we're handling all the mapping and all the mechanisms behind that within Synthesize. We handle all that. Rewst doesn't do that. We handle that. So that way it makes things stupid simple when it comes down to creating these integrations. Once those are mapped, because again, when it comes to NCE, you want to map your business premium, monthly billing, monthly commit SKU to your month-to-month SKU in your PSA. And you want to do that accordingly to all your commitment terms, your annual paid monthly, your annual paid annual. You can essentially have 3 commitments for the same SKU, and things get really confusing, especially when you have like a mix of those things on the same contract or agreement. So if you have those one-to-one associations, and maybe SureWeb or these vendors don't natively have those things built out within their services or SKUs, well, this is where we can extract that information and append those things together and do whatever you want to fit your billing needs, which is super cool. So yeah, that's essentially where we're building your accounts, services. Once that's all said and done, you're essentially coming into Synthesize, mapping those accounts and services to your PSA, finish configuring that custom integration, and we're then going to sync that usage. And we're only going to sync usage for those that have been mapped. And again, we're not instantly updating your PSA. This is something that we were very strategic about. And, you know, automation will come to auto reconcile. That will come. But here's the thing. There's always going to be a human component when it comes to billing reconciliation. It's just one of those things where it's already complicated enough. We need someone to go in and validate and review and confirm, approve, adjust, dismiss changes and usage each and every month prior to your invoice cycle. Because like we mentioned earlier, even though you go to your RMM for your source of truth, for device counts, agents, etc., just how, in Tim's words, truthy is that? Because again, it's really easy to deploy agents in any given month. So if you're automatically syncing to your contracts, you're automatically updating based on those changes. So we want to catch those before it's too late and it already hits your invoice. You've already generated that. It's in the hands of your client. And then you're eroding client satisfaction and trust because all of a sudden they think that you can't even handle your own books. So we're trying to reduce the callbacks and we're trying to avoid of all errors altogether. So this is really where, again, we're not automatically syncing into your PSA. It's coming into Synthesize based on those mappings, that usage, so you can review and approve and dismiss and adjust those instantly, writing back to your PSA. And that way you have invoice accuracy. Yeah. That way you can make those judgment calls. Maybe I did have 10 or so agents installed for a particular customer in the last 30 days. Maybe I want to give them a break. I only want to adjust by 5 this month, true up by 5 the next, etc. Or maybe it was through like a merger of like backup disaster recovery servers, and it's just like you had to have duplicate agents altogether because of that, and all of a sudden your accounts are out of whack. Well, you know that, and maybe if you don't, you're raising those red flags and talking with the account manager, and then all of a sudden, yeah, this makes sense, but I'm going to dismiss this because I don't want to have that change reflected on my invoice. So again, we want to give you control over those things. But again, this is where the power of custom integrations with Synthesize API, workflows within Rewst, where you can modify those workflows and custom integrations to your own billing needs. And so like if we were to look at like an RMM there, Tim, like that we could even like further automate this to have extra layers to void any like agents that have been idle for the last like 90 days or something like that, right?
Yep, sure could.
Yeah.
And one point, to make on that is for, automation doesn't have to be 100% automated to be successful. If you're saving
No.
time with automation, then you are saving money and you're getting success. If your automation can put more information in front of you faster and in a way that you can consume better, then it's doing its job.
Mm-hmm. Preach. Yes,
Yeah.
that's right. Yeah, it doesn't have to be fully automated. I totally agree with that because I think there is always going to be some human components involved with whatever process, even when it comes to your service desk. I strongly believe that there still needs to be a human component, especially when it comes to triaging and whatnot. But
Absolutely.
yeah, so why don't we jump through? I think you were wanting to walk through like how to then use this create marketplace workflow that you created for SureWeb and then transform that to support other vendors, let's say.
Yep, absolutely. So just to show how someone would make use of this, we do have a crate marketplace that you mentioned before. You can come in here and you can find crates, which are again automations that we have pre-built that you can bring into your environment. And these may work right out the box for what you want, or you may want to adjust them. And either way is fine because you can take it, you can install it, and you can make it your own. Once we built the SureWeb crate for someone, they came to us and said, "Hey, we also want to grab Ninja RMM devices." And so we were able to, basically take the SureWeb workflow, and it only took minor adjustments to make it work with another source of truth, I guess we can call it. So if you look on the left side where we're grabbing gradient things, it's the exact same steps on the left side. The only difference is the variables that allow us to choose which integration we're using. So we have those the vendor and partner tokens that align us to the right application within Gradient Synthesize. And so we change those, put those keys in, and then we can bring a whole new source of truth in to populate the data. So for these guys, all they really cared about was just a list of devices, really just the count of devices. They didn't care to make a distinction between servers and desktops. They build them all equally. They, felt good about their data hygiene. So, old devices are properly removed because they have other automations that check for that. So we don't need to really do a whole lot of filtering for these guys. Your case may be different. You may want to pull maybe 2 or 3 different sources and combine the information, and that's all possible. But if you look at the difference between what we did for a licensed vendor versus an RMM, the workflows, for the most part, the same. If I put them side by side, they look pretty much the same. I have one fewer step here because, actually, I'm not sure why. Oh, we collect the information a little bit differently, but the structure is the same. So, really you can swap out 2 or 3 actions and bring in some other application. So if you've got something else, some completely different source of truth that you want to use with Synthesize, you'd be able to, take one of these crates, clone it into your environment. You would go here, you would unsynchronize the clone, or better yet, you would make your own copy of it So I would clone this again. I would call this, instead of Ninja RMM, say I wanted to do this with Huntress. Then I could, set it to Huntress. But I think you guys have an integration with Huntress, so it could be something completely different that um, you
Yeah,
want
and
to use.
even if we don't, even though we do have like a integration with Huntress, it's one of those things where, again, you might want to even just leverage Roost altogether because they have that integration already pre-built. So you can create these actions accordingly really
Yep,
easily and
could be.
clone these workflows. But on top of that, again, even just delving into Huntress, it's like one of those situations where, um, you know, it really depends on how you structure their vendor portal to extract that information. So every MSP might structure their Huntress portal a little differently based on groups or policies, etc.
That could be.
So maybe you're all of a sudden you need to return the usage from a particular organization, or however you go about structuring those vendor portals, because again, there's some vendors that don't even support even multi-tenancy within their API. So again, you could
Yeah.
still extract that all that information. It's just you would have to make multiple calls for each tenant and have keys for each tenant. But again, you can still get around those things through custom integrations, through these workflows. So just because they don't have multi-tenancy, just because they don't have like unique IDs for organizations, there's still ways of extracting usage. Just recently working with KnowBe4, they don't have a multi-tenancy API. So again, we can still suck that information across all your tenants, but we'd effectively have to customize that custom integration to extract and authenticate for each tenant, retrieve each tenant's member groups and members. But again, we can still automate and synchronize that information, just maybe a little bit more lift because of those limitations, but we can still get around them. So again, just because that vendor may not have like the creme de la creme of APIs doesn't mean that we can't synchronize that usage. You might just have to be a little creative, but that's why Roost has people like Tim because this he can do that for you, right? So yeah.
Yeah,
So
and I mean, it may be that you need to pull data from multiple applications at once. So you may need to tie you might need to reference the computers from one application against your RMM to determine which customer they belong to. And that's what you could do with a workflow too, is, get that list from your RMM, and then you're cross-referencing before you synchronize that into Synthesize.
Yeah. There's truly limitless possibilities as to what you could do. So if your vendor, so what happens if your vendor doesn't even support like an open API? There are other ways, even through PowerShell and our PowerShell SDK, to use Selenium to like log in RPA, log into that partner portal, go to a specific section of their partner portal to download a CSV, parse through that CSV, and then automatically sync those services and accounts and usage into Synthesize. So is there anything like that from Roost's perspective, like a Selenium type PowerShell? Or
Not
can you just
currently.
execute PowerShell through a workflow?
Yeah, so we do support running PowerShell. You would run this, so we don't have an agent of our own, but we talk to anything with an API, including RMMs, obviously. So whenever we need to run something through PowerShell or something on premise, we can talk to your RMM to do that.
Very
So
cool.
we can do things like, if you were billing based on your on-prem Active Directory computers, we could pull that based on a query against a domain controller.
That's really cool. So I think we're running at the top of our hour here. We got 15 minutes to go. So I don't know if there's anything else that you wanted to share there, Tim.
Um, that's pretty much covers it. I mean, I'm more than happy to show you anything else about the platform. It's it's we have a lot of fun with it every week. We get customers who build things that we didn't think we could do. so so we always get surprised by somebody who said, "Hey, I've got this cool thing." We had somebody who built a report for multi-factor authentication across their whole client base, to be able to tell them who has it turned on and who doesn't, and not only
Yeah,
by directly querying the users, but looking at all of their policies and everything. So the power is
incredible.
there. It's the power plus the creativity of the people who use it that really bring the
Yeah.
surprises to us.
And with those eggs within the Crate marketplace, it makes things easy if you're just a newcomer to Roost to implement these things and modify these workflows to fit your needs. So there's no
Yes.
question
So
that
we
you
do
can
have
out of the box start creating.
Yeah. So yeah, we do have training available as well, and I'm giving these courses now. We call it Cluck University,
Nice.
and we're teaching people how to be successful with automation. So we start off building a simple workflow, and then it gets more complicated over time. And that's one of the things that we really like to teach and to kind of drive home is that even an automation this big, you're not going to do on your first day.
No.
You need to learn some foundations, but you can do something very simple. You can, you build your first hello world, you build your first how do I log into Gradient style automation, and then you build upon that. So you take your successes and you just make them better and better and more useful for you.
Yeah. Very cool. Yeah, we were thinking of doing a university type program too, and it was going to be called School of Flock. But I think with trademark and copyright infringements, that might have not gone so well. No, but yeah, what was it called again? Cluck,
Cluck
Cluck
University, or
University.
good old Cluck
Very
U.
good.
So.
I love it. Yeah, into the coop, Cluck University, all the bird puns. We're no stranger to those, because our spokesbird is a flamingo after all. So,
That's right.
yeah. So I'm gonna stop your recording and or not stop recording. Sorry. I'm gonna share my screen, and I'm going to just finish this presentation here. And so if you do have any questions, just jump into the Q&A section there, ask away. We'd love to hear from you. Now, I just wanted to just cover takeaways, because this is really where I just like to end any series, any webinar with, and the Coles notes, if you will. And so takeaway number one is just automate, automate, automate. Now, as we mentioned earlier, just because it's not fully automated doesn't mean that it's not efficient, doesn't mean that it's not a good workflow. There's still situations, whether it be in your backend processes or client facing processes, that are still very much, there's still that human intervention that's required. No different than the back-end operations when it comes to billing reconciliation, running through your invoice cycles. You want to make sure that you are void of issues, mistakes, and you really want to lessen the administrative burden altogether, but there's still that human component. So again, this is where we can leverage integrations with Roost, to custom integration within Synthesize, and really make your life as an MSP easier. So even if you're not the person that traditionally does the billing reconciliation, and maybe you are, pass that on to someone that does. We have Roost and Gradient have fantastic user interfaces to make things really easy. Again, when it comes to the billing reconciliation, approve, adjust, dismiss, those services right back to your PSA, make sure that you have invoice accuracy and whatnot. But again, there's nothing stopping you from automating those processes altogether. Now that Synthesize has opened up our API, we have custom integrations There's some big announcements coming June 1st, so you better register. But again, just go crazy with automation because that's what Rewst and Gradient is all about. Now, takeaway number 2 is just Synthesize and Rewst are a great pairing. Now, again, 2 birds of a feather coming together. Yes, we get the bird puns, but there's no question that even though Rewst doesn't have a direct integration with Synthesize just yet, we can still get around those with HTTPS requests and modify those previously created eggs within the Crate marketplace. Am I coining those right? They're eggs, right?
We call them crates, but yeah.
Crates,
You
eggs,
might see
whatever.
the eggs in there. Those are, I think, our beta crates, but yeah.
Okay, beta crates are eggs. Okay, I get it. Yeah, what comes before the crate? The egg, or chicken or the egg. So yeah, this is really, again, what we've been iterating throughout this series is just, again, the sheer power of Rewst, Synthesize coming together to make your life easier. And if you need help setting those workflows up, talk to Rewst. If you need help creating custom integrations, come talk to us. We'll leverage things like Rewst. We'll leverage things like your vendor or distro APIs. There's nothing stopping us. And again, maybe your vendor doesn't even support a vendor API. Why not just use Selenium and PowerShell to log into those accounts and extract that information, parse that information, sync to Synthesize. So again, you're not having to touch that information again. You're not having to export that information, creating it into a pivot chart, only to manually adjust those things accordingly within your PSA, taking away your time, and that's valuable. We want to reduce that altogether. So again, there's some really creative solutions out there with pairing Rewst and Gradient together to automate your billing and alerting needs. So now to wrap all things up, I don't think we have any QA, so I'm just going to skip this. But if you do, you still have some time to jump in there for Q&A. Now, last thing I just want to say is just to highlight Leg Up. Now, Rewst is a boss sponsor. So they're going to be there. They're going to have their virtual booth. And I got first eyes on what our virtual conference space looks like. And it looks absolutely fantastic. You're going to be able to create your own 32-bit avatar. I can't wait to see Tim's 32-bit avatar. It's going to be an awesome day full of prizes, keynote speakers from industry leaders. You can do networking with your peers, gain valuable insights, and optimize your business operations from sales, marketing, automation, you name it. Like, we got it covered at this virtual conference. It's truly one of a kind. It's free. It's free to register. So if you haven't already done so, go to legupconference.com, register today. There's going to be prizes even. So even if you don't care about all of the exciting opportunities to network and engage in a unique way, again, it's virtual. It's like pixelated. It brings me back to like nostalgia, like playing my DOS system and like N64 in the day, like all pixelated art and whatnot. So it's going to be a fun day full of events and prizes. We got lots to give away. So don't miss out on this chance to learn from the best and take your MSP business to new heights. And like I said before, we got some big announcements. So our CEO, Colin Knox, will start the day by announcing some big things that are coming to Synthesize and the channel, if you will, because this will impact everyone within the channel. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. So again, go to legupconference.com, learn some more, and if you haven't already, go and register. It's free, and you can win prize. I think they even have one you could win one of 2 prizes just for registering, if I'm not mistaken. We just got prizes to give away galore. So we're just like, hey, if you register, we'll give you something, or you're eligible to win, sort of thing. So lots of things happening there. And lastly, stay tuned for the next series of Nerdy Birdy. Again, it's usually the 3rd Tuesday of every month. And this is in or around the time when you're even thinking about billing reconciliation. You're like, holy cow, I should probably do something about that. It's really easy to set up Synthesize. We have direct integrations, custom integrations, CSV imports. We got Rewst. We got a lot of things to pull in and suck in that information to make your life easier, so you have invoice accuracy and whatnot. So if you haven't already done so, register, get your account set up with Synthesize. It's a 15-minute process to sync your PSA. Super simple. Love to work with y'all. And Tim, last words, anything?
Oh, just thanks for being here, and get to automating.
Get to automating. That's right. Well, thank you so much for coming on and being a guest speaker, the Nerdy Birdy, for this series. And look forward with working with Rewst and your team going forward. And yeah, for everyone that attended, thank you so much. And for anyone that's watching the pre-recording, reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much. And we'll talk soon. Take care.